And we're back. Okay, so this is the second half of episode 8 of Bleep Bleep Bloop Bloop. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing, because this is subscribers only. I'm just flashing the instructions again for the kit. This is a continuation here. I'm populating the board, and then I'm going to solder them on, solder the parts on. I sped up, I think double the speed on the video to get the whole entire second half under 40 minutes. So we're on the clock here, 37 minutes and change, counting down. And I did a whole thing where I tried using like a piece of cardboard to hold the parts, and then I said forget about it. I snapped off a piece of styrofoam, a couple pieces of styrofoam, and I'm using styrofoam. I have the resistors on one little piece of styrofoam, and I've written the values down. I wrote them in Sharpie on the styrofoam surface. And then I have everything else, the transistors and the IC, which is the 555 timer IC, and the one Zener diode, and the regular diode, and the capacitors and stuff on the other big piece of styrofoam. And the green masking tape that's holding some resistors that had come with the kit. I think the 47K, if I remember correctly. And the parts tester I was using messed up on them and said they were a double diode or something and not right. And then I went to trouble. I dug out my own little assortment of resistors, got the same resistor, same value resistance resistors, and then I tested them. The parts tester said the same erroneous nonsense for those, so I knew it was wrong, and I just went about my business. And you see the large paper to the bottom right there. It's a blown up translated version of the instructions. Yeah. So I'm taking off the parts as I put them on the board. And you know the drill. You put in the resistors first because they're the lowest and tightest to the board surface, and then you put in progressively bigger, lumpier components that project further from the surface of the board, because you're soldering the opposite side. And if you try to mix it together, if you do low relief, I mean like components that don't protrude as much, if you try to solder those at the same time as you do ones that protrude further, then the ones that are protrude less, they'll like slip out or fall, or they'll dangle. Some of the things on this board I end up mounting off the board a little bit. I don't put them right down on there in case I want to cut them out later or desolder or remove them. It's easier if they're not hugging the board so tightly. Anyway, so I'm changing rubber band because the orange was too wide. But for this, always use silicone rubber bands. Okay, they're better. They survive exposure to higher temperatures better. So just like the silicone membrane, a silicone ring that runs around the lids of fridge containers that are meant to be put in the microwave or something, because they can take a little bit of heat from steam. Don't press your soldering iron directly onto the silicone rubber band. It might fail. But for just like secondary exposure, just like you're soldering a component nearby, it's fine. I've never had one fail yet. All right, so let's see what we covered. I still got the same flexy, low quality clipboard that I was complaining about. Can you hear that? That's the sound of me wobbling by bending the clipboard in my hands. So I covered my complaints about the paper that I'm using and the difficulty of finding a wide range of styles of graph and grid marked paper. And I told you about my sob stories about the injuries to my 3 fingers on my right hand. That they've totally recovered, but it was crazy. One finger after another, in sequence, had trouble. And I complained about this clipboard again. The other stuff I want to talk about is some books I've been reading recently, and give them some context to why it's interesting to me, and why maybe it might be. I hope maybe have some interest for you. Okay, so recent books that I've gotten. Okay, I've got in my lap right now. I got a paperback. I usually try to avoid paperbacks if I can get a hardcover, but if I absolutely can't get a hardcover but I want the book, I'll get a paperback. They're not as fragile as people seem to make out or seem to believe. I've got the DAW, the name of the DAWSF, so Daw books, but it's not Daw. I think it's Donald Wollheim. Yeah, Donald A. Wilhelm. A.E. Van Vogt. Oh, sorry, Van Vogt. V-O-G-T. Since I was a little kid, when I was a little boy, a little what do they call it? What did my father, Irish word for it? Jeez, can't remember. Like a little skidoo or whatever. I can't remember what he used to call a little kid. Since I was a little sprout, I had said, I remember I'd seen this name, which wasn't that often. I said, I always pronounced it Vo with a silent GT. I thought that was like a French, but everyone I've heard say his name on YouTube, like fans and like old people who knew him in real life, said Van Vogt. Even Phil K. Dick, Van Vogt. A.E. Van Vogt. Computer World. Ultra-modern science fiction for the post-1984 era. It's an interesting book. It's written in the Van Vogt style. So if you can't take Van Vogt, maybe you won't enjoy it. But it's a good book, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm about 1/5 of the way through. It's a novel. Paperback. All right. Next book. This one was a surprise. Have you seen I Am Legend, the film starring Will Smith? If not, or perhaps you have you seen or have you also seen Omega Man or The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston? Okay. If you have or you haven't, have you seen The Last Man on Earth, I believe is the title, starring Vincent Price? Those are all based on the same short story, I Am Legend, which was originally written by Richard Matheson, 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 like mathematics, Matheson. So Richard Matheson he wrote a lot in many genres. He was extremely prolific, and he also wrote What Dreams May Come. He wrote the screenplay, and if I remember correctly, he was angry that they hadn't used the screenplay at all, and his view was they hadn't used it at all. And I think he published it in a book with essays or nonfiction. He published the What Dreams May Come screenplay, and I think I have that somewhere, but I haven't read it yet. So this is a collection. It's the title is Offbeat: like two dots, Uncollected Stories, and it's all Richard Matheson stuff, but it's edited by William F. Nolan. And I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's very good. The first few stories, Relics, Blunderbuss, and Now I'm Waiting. The first three, I've read those. They are quite good. And Now I'm Waiting especially has a twist ending. And I don't want to spoil it for you. Relics is well written, but the structure or the it's not so complicated, so I won't feel guilty if I give you a spoiler for that, if I ruin it for you. Okay, so I'm just going to say, Relics, the setup is it's a school teacher taking a group of school children to a dusty old museum in a city somewhere, and she's tired and she's weary, and the children's behavior is the usual thing where the adult has to herd a group of children, keep them together, keep them out of trouble in like a non-school setting on a school trip. You can imagine how it goes, okay? But spoiler alert, I'm going to give you the twist. The twist is that they're not human. The artifacts in the museum are from the human era of Earth, and humans are extinct. Their numbers greatly decreased after the alien invasions, whatever they are, they invaded and killed most people. The last few went extinct afterwards. So they're all aliens. They don't describe them at all physically. They describe them in very general terms, just the way what they're up to, what they're doing. It could be anything, but they're not human. Okay, that's interesting. So this book is it's a story collection of Richard Matheson material and previously uncollected. Okay, but what shocked me when I opened it was I got it used, and it's got the library style plastic cover, where they hold it on with strapping tape that has little fiberglass fibers in it. It's like little white stripes, pinstripes. And when you first open the book, the end papers are blue, thick blue, very nice. They have some texture to them, and the end papers are stamped at the top. The first one, when you open it, February 25th, 2003. I think that's when this book was acquired by the library that had it. And then the library stamp is at the bottom. Property of Nashville Public Library, and it goes on and gives the address in Nashville, Tennessee. But then when you turn that end paper, you get to the title page. And the title page threw me for a loop. It has a title, of course, and then it has 2 lines with the names beneath them and the signatures of, respectively, first, Richard Matheson, his is in blue ballpoint, and then William F. Nolan, he's the editor who collected these stories, in red ink. And then it says, this special signed edition is limited to 750 numbered copies and 52 lettered copies. This is copy, and in blue, like felt tip pen, 338. Incredible. So this book was published just in 2002, and it may have been published in 2002, but maybe the library didn't get their copy until 2003. So that's why I think that's what I think the significance of the date stamped on the end paper is. So the library got it, and they already discarded it, and I got it used in 2026. So it seems like it was in the library barely 20 years. It looks brand new. It looks as though it's never been read. It's beautiful. And another detail is William F. Nolan, the person, the editor for this volume, he is an accomplished author in his own right. In his own right. If you've seen Logan's Run, he's the co-author of Logan's Run with another gentleman who is a super cool character. You look up Logan's Run, the novelization. The novel, it's not a novelization, it's the original. It was written as original and then turned into a film. You look it up on Wikipedia. So, and then the sequels, there are 2, or I think there are 3 total subsequent sequels that were written. They were all by Nolan. So Nolan co-wrote the first book and then wrote all the rest. So if you've seen Logan's Run, the plot of the book is significantly different than the plot of the film. But it's not totally different, okay? But it's excellent. So I encourage you. This would be a good book if you can find a copy. You can find it online. You can find it on somewhere, or you can get a copy. This is a hardcover, super nice. That's me wrapping the hardcover with my knuckles. Okay, so I told you about the Van Vogt book. I told you about the Richard Matheson book. The last book I want to talk about is a Ray Bradbury book. It's a collection of short stories called One More for the Road. I believe it was published in 2002, I think. So let me look. The copyright page. 2002, yes. It's published 2002. This is the hardcover. It's got like a Model T Ford. The cover is illustrated, and the illustration is like a Model T Ford with someone who looks like Laurel Hardy. It looks like Oliver Hardy seems to be driving the Model T Ford type car. It's open top, and they got like a butler-looking guy holding a metal tray with what looks to be like a martini glass on it. There's a golfer in the back, I think, and other people in the car. And then there's a dragon following the car. The car has its headlights on, and it's on like a country road with a sign, like a highway sign that says 451. It's a reference to Fahrenheit 451, undoubtedly. And there's 2 billboards that have the title in halves. One more, and the next billboard says For the Road. That's so you'll know which cover I have if you look it up. The amazing thing, this is also signed. This is signed by Ray Bradbury and looks like green Sharpie or some kind of green thick permanent marker. And the book is beautiful. If there's any flaw, it's just the same. It's at the same page that's bearing the signature. It's the blank page before the title page. There looks to be like a little water stain at the bottom right corner of that page. Doesn't touch the signature though. It's incredible. So I've read several stories in this book. They're very well written. I think Bradbury got better as a writer as he got older. Maybe, I don't know. That's my personal opinion. From what I can discern from reading stories published, that you can sometimes the collections they bring together stories from various periods, so you have to see when they were originally published. But this collection is stuff. If I remember correctly, I checked. It's not in any of the other collections I have. Like big 2-volume paperback. I think Bradbury 100 is what they call that, in 2 volumes. Or the Library of America, the black dust jacket books that in several volumes have this stuff. This is all new stories, if I remember correctly. So the stories are great. And it's not a complaint, is that they're sad. So the title is sad or wistful, bittersweet or something. It's some of them are kind of tearjerkers. The first one's pretty rough that way. It's very touching, very well written, and I think I'm going to take the title for this episode from the first story. The first story in One for the Road is called First Day. So the main character is named Charles Douglas, and his wife is Alice Douglas. And it starts, and they're sitting at breakfast time one day. They haven't begun eating yet, and Charles asks his wife if it's the first day of school, and she points out that it doesn't matter since they're old, like kind of they're senior citizen type people, and they don't have any children, and they don't know anybody has children, so why does it matter? And then Charles tells her that he's almost forgotten, but that he and his friends in 1938 they'd made a promise that 50 years from that day, or 50 years hence, the first day of school in 50 years, they would meet at their old school at the flagpole there. Okay, so he's realized that, today's the day, I've got to get down there. So originally he wants his wife to accompany him, but she doesn't want to go. She's kind of, you'd say she's derisive. She thinks he's foolish to go. She thinks that no one else will be there. She thinks it's a waste of time, and so on and so forth. And he goes, and I won't spoil the story completely, all right? But I'll give you a taste. I'll say that it's a sad story, but all of the other children, now grown up, they're there. So they're all old, of course, because they tell you in the story on page 2 of the book. Okay, this is his wife first. This all has to do with the first day of school in 1938? Yeah, 38. And you stood around with Ross and Jack and Gordon. And we didn't just stand around. We knew we were going out in the world and might not meet again for years, or never. But we took a solemn oath. No matter what, we'd all remember and come back, across the world if we had to meet out in front of the school by the flagpole, 1988. You promised all that? Solemn promise, yeah. And here I am, sitting here talking, when I should be getting the hell out the door. So he goes, that's not the line. The line is from later in that story that I'm going to take my title from this episode from. It's a good book, but it reminded me, because it's a Ray Bradbury book, he was one of when I always enjoyed reading and enjoyed books since I was a young child, all right? I grew up, I would say poor, definitely lower middle class, and lower and lower as time went on through my childhood. But my house had a lot of books. We had a lot of books. We had a lot of old magazines. We had paperbacks. We had hardcovers. And in my town, the local public library, they had, when you entered the library, they had a bench. And on the bench, their books were standing spine up. And paperbacks, if I remember right, were 10 cents. And hardcovers were 25 cents. And when it came to that, my mother let me spend almost as much as I could beg her for nickels. I could beg her for extra dimes and quarters, and she never complained. And she'd give me all the change in her purse. She had no complaints. So I would take books out from my school library. I'd take books out from my public library, and especially they had the shelves where the new books would be placed before they went to the general population of the library. I would haunt those shelves and always look for new books. And I was also allowed to purchase books, used books, and I got a lot of great stuff that way. But one of the early authors I got into was Ray Bradbury, and it's because at my library, my school library, I believe it was middle school. I don't have an eidetic memory. I don't remember everything that's happened to me. I remember a lot of it's very fuzzy, actually. When I talk to people, I find that's generally the common state of affairs. Most people don't have perfect memories, and most people struggle to remember. People say they have a great memory. They struggle to remember very basic details about even their the previous day, what they've done, what they had, or what they ate, or what they read, or what they did, or where they went. It's kind of surprising. I think if you sit down and think about it, unless you're one of the rare people with exceptional memories, you'll find you're in a similar situation. But think it was middle school. So in America, in the Mid-Atlantic states at that time, middle school for me, it was between elementary school, what British people term primary school, and high school, what British and Commonwealth people would call secondary school. So it would be from the 6th grade through the 8th grade. So 6, 7, and 8. And then high school would be 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I think in my middle school library on the shelf, they had copies of 2 Ray Bradbury books. They may have had more, but these are the only 2 that I know that they had because I read them, and I recall that I read them. S is for space, and R is for rocket. And R is for rocket, if I remember, made more of an impression on me. And it made enough of an impression that later on, I got a used copy online, and I have it here. I pulled it from the shelf for this episode of Bleep Bleep Bloop Bloop because I wanted to speak about it a little bit. There's some details. So I'm holding it in my hands now. It's the I may put a picture up if I can find one. It's a paperback. It's the Bantam Pathfinder edition. It's got a picture of like a spacey looking picture, dark space background sky with something in the bottom left side of the picture. There's something like a circle, like a sphere. It looks like it could be a small moon, and there's a swirl of could be gas clouds and stars up in the sky behind what looks like a rocket. And there's a vertical seam that runs from after the cone of the rocket. When it becomes a cylinder, it runs all the way down, sort of, and it looks as though there's maybe liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen fuel vaporizing and becoming like a thick fog, and it's running down the side of the rocket. It looks like, but there's no windows or anything. I think it's a rocket. It could be a piece of sausage, but it looks like a rocket. Okay, and I want to just run through the contents of the book super quickly. Okay. It's a slim paperback. It's the last story starts on page 179, so it's under 200 and something pages. R is for rocket, the end of the beginning, the foghorn, the rocket man, the golden apples of the sun, a sound of thunder, the long rain, the exiles, here there be tigers, with a Y, so Tygers, the strawberry window, the dragon, the gift, frost and fire, Uncle Einar, the time machine, the sound of summer running. So those are all good stories, okay? The back cover specifically calls out Frost and Fire. That one was made into a short film that's very cool and very artsy. I don't know the title of it. I'm not going to click-clack on my keyboard now to try to find it for you. But the premise is there's something, I think it's human settlers crashed on some planet, and there's some problem with the planet that did something to them. I think that's the background. Basically, people's lives are compressed. So people go through a normal birth, growing to a maturity, adulthood, and then increasing senescence and frailty, and eventually die of old age. But it's compressed. The whole thing happens very fast. So in the story, people are born, and while they're growing up, their parents are literally crumbling, almost becoming feeble and like wrinkled before their very eyes. Like they look away, look back, they've gotten super wrinkled just in that short time. The kind of situation. So Uncle Einar, that's part of that cycle of stories that Ray Bradbury has written about the kind of ghoulish family, but they're good ghoulish mostly. They're not necessarily evil. Pretty cool. There's whole books where he's collected all those stories together. The Foghorn, that's the story that Ray Bradbury credits as having gotten him the job with the director John Huston to write the screenplay for Moby Dick. It's a smart story, smart idea. It's really cool, but I think you already know about it. A foghorn on a lighthouse attracting a sea monster, basically. A Sound of Thunder, that's a time travel story about hunting dinosaurs, and it's not where the idea of the butterfly effect came from, but it's kind of it's a time travel butterfly effect story. It's about changing the future. It's like a seemingly inconsequential tiny thing you do in the past has enormous ripple effects after time, through the passage of time. But I wanted to talk about two stories here that had an effect on me when I was young that particularly interested me. Okay, so the lesser in terms of impact on me first, okay? Here There Be Tigers. That one was cool. I think I read this at around the same time as I read the Ursula K. Le Guin story, Vaster Than Empires and More Slow, or But More Slow. The one about plant intelligences, I think. But it's something. They're both similar, and they're about planets that seem to be alive, or about, if you know Stanislaw Lem Solaris. They made it into the movie. It's the Russian director made it into a film, and it's on Criterion. There's Criterion disc of it. It's really cool. Well, it's something similar. It's about a planet that wants to woo the human visitors, the explorers, and get them to stay. And one person doesn't really go along with that. They don't trust the living sort of planet, and they make the planet angry, and then the planet manifests man-eating animals, apparently, or gives that impression to everyone else, and makes that guy disappear. And then the captain snaps out of it, says, "We gotta get out of here." And they leave, and one guy stays on the planet, and he's fine. But the planet, when they leave, the planet shows them all kinds of scary stuff, like a scorned woman. It shows them all kinds of, they're raising, and the rocket's ascending. They look down through, I guess, telescopes or whatever. They see all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And that made a big impression on me. But the one that really got me was The Long Rain. So that's really interesting. It's about Venus. But first, before I go into any detail about what the story is about, what the story says about Venus, or the version of Venus described in the story, okay? It was written in the 1950s as under different titles, published under the title Death by Rain. Death-by-Rain. And I think Planet Stories, I think it was summer of 1950, okay? So that gives you context for, you can imagine, even before I get into anything, you can just up front, you can guess that a lot less was known about what the surface of Venus was like in 1950, okay? So in the story, Venus has been colonized by people, but it seems like a very small number of people altogether so far. The planet's covered with ocean. There's one large island, but it's large in maybe like the main island of Hawaii, something like that. I can't remember if they tell you in the story exactly how large it is or any comparison. But it's not really big. It's not like Greenland, okay? And on that island, it rains constantly, and there are also powerful thunderstorms raging all the time, and a lot of lightning strikes. And lightning strikes are powerful lightning strikes. They're dangerous in themselves. And the plants or the vegetable, the jungles on this island, I think they're fungal. They're not necessarily photosynthetic, or they're not just photosynthetic plants. There's also fungi, or they may be completely fungi, all fungi, and not photosynthetic plants at all. But they grow really fast, and they can grow on people. They can colonize you before you've actually died. You know, it's very quick moving, these plants, these organisms, whatever they are, fungi, plant, whatever. And there's a network of things called sun domes, I think. They've been built as kind of like R&R stations, and also like little fortresses and redoubts for humans who have been attacked by the natives. And there are natives. They're not realized in as much detail as in the Martian Chronicles. Some of the stories in that cycle, the way they describe Martians, it tells you that there are natives living in the ocean who come out of the ocean. They're aquatic. They come out somehow, and they attack the human settlements on land, and often kill people and destroy settlements and things like that. So these guys, they've crashed, and the natives didn't have to do with their crash, but they had some kind of rocket or aircraft failure. And the survivors of that, I think they start out with 4, and the numbers go down as the story progresses. They're looking for a working sun dome in the jungle, and they're hard to find their way, hard to get their bearings, hard to keep on a route that they've chosen. Even if they pick a way to go, it's hard to stay on it because of the terrain and the jungle and the rain and stuff like that. It's really cool. But the cool thing was, about the same time that I read that story in R's for Rocket when I was a little kid, I also came across, I think in my public library, it was simultaneous or nearly simultaneous, a book written by Carl Sagan for Time Life Books. The book is called Planets. It's by Time Life. The co-author was Carl Sagan, you know him. The co-author Jonathan Norton Leonard, and it was published in 1966 and then revised in 1968. And it's a really interesting book, profusely, beautifully illustrated. But the main cool thing about the book is that it gives you, Sagan goes through and he tells you how the vision, how scientists' understanding of what Mars was like, their belief as to what it was probably like, had changed radically in just like about 50 years. It's crazy. Because before any spacecraft had gone, they were using telescopes, and they were all ground-based telescopes, and they were looking at the absorption spectra from the Venusian atmosphere. But of course, since they're looking through Earth's atmosphere, they have to try to tell. They try to take the same measurements of bare sky or the moon, and then compare it to the measurements of what they hope is Venus's atmosphere to see if they can see any difference, and so on and so forth. It's amazing. Okay, so this book, there's no page numbers on the pages as far as I can tell, so I'm giving you page numbers from a PDF. So just recognize the PDF page numbers will include everything from like the cover on, so you may have to subtract some pages if you find a copy. All right, so there's a bunch of almost full page color illustrations, paintings, actually they're beautiful, okay, that they show the evolving visions of Venus. All right, so the first one on the first page, it's a 2-page spread. It's titled Two Versions of Venus, starting on page 128 and spanning to page 129. And on the left page, it's a steamy swamp, and the painting on that page is like a carboniferous forest from Earth from hundreds of millions of years before present. Super beautiful, green with yellowish tint. Okay, and then the facing page would be page 129 in the PDF. A dusty desert is the label, and the painting looks like a John Schoenherr cover of Dune without a sandworm or any Fremen on it. It's looks like a kind of shadowy, dusky desert with sand ripples and sand being blown everywhere. All right, and then the next 2-page spread, pages 130 and 131. The title for the spread is A Seltzer Sea, an Oily Ocean, and the first page it says a carbonated sea, and it's got like waves with foam, and then dark clouds above, and above that a very puffy, like broccoli cumulus cloud style yellowy deck of clouds. Okay, and the facing page, page 131, it says a petroleum planet, and there it's beautiful. It's bubbling. Look at a sea of bubbling oil with brownish, reddish brown clouds and steam coming off of the oil. And then pages 132 to 133, a forbidding picture. And this one looks pretty much, it looks a lot, it also looks like Dune, but not so much wind, okay? And the title for this picture, this one has a portrait that spans 2 pages. Not one, each one has a portrait cover, painting covers that page. It spans 2 pages. It's a forbidding picture, and it shows yardangs, like black rock. It looks smooth, but it's been sculpted by sand or something, by wind. And there's a golden sand with ripples in the sand and a yellow sky. Okay, so so that last one is the picture. Remember, the book was 1966 and revised 1968. That's before the Soviet Venera probe actually landed and took photographs of the surface of Venus. So nobody knew what it looked like. Okay, but the temperature and the pressure conditions they knew. Okay, they got those correct. And it says, after 1956, a reliable picture of Venus began to emerge at last. A surprising picture of a searing hot, bone-dry planet surrounded by clouds of ice. Radio telescopes reported conditions so extreme as to rule out completely a surface of either water or oil. Temperatures measured from the sunlit side averaged 800 degrees Fahrenheit and went as high as 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. So the ice cloud mostly is not. The clouds we believe now, they're sulfuric acid, if I remember correctly, okay? But the cool thing is, I remember the word yardang. I learned it from this book, and I never forgot it. But the preceding pages, he tells you why they believe that it was possibly why Svante Arrhenius, the Swedish scientist, he's the one who promulgated the idea that it was a steamy jungle, the first vision. And the second vision was the hot desert type sandy area. And then the third one was the Seltzer Sea, and then the bubbling petroleum planet. You can poke around and do some reading and you can see why during various periods, based on the evidence that they had, they had these beliefs about the surface of Venus. It's incredibly interesting, really. And you can read the original papers. You have to hunt a little bit. So for the first two versions, he tells you it's Fonte Arrhenius, and then he tells you that the Charles St. John and Seth B. Nicholson, they're the ones who found out that there's really no oxygen and no water vapor in the atmosphere that could be detected. So like that. But then with the rest, he didn't really get into who came up with those ideas. So I can tell you, petroleum planet. Think about Fred Hoyle. You look up Fred Hoyle, surface of Venus oil. How about that? You can find it. And for the carbonated sea, that one was, I think it was Whipple, this astronomer named Whipple. You can look it up. But I think we're almost out of time. Whew, this is the second run I made of recording this. I got cut off in the first one without getting through what I've gotten through. So I determined that I had to go back and from scratch and do it again. Okay, so it's my second 36 and change 37-minute run through. Okay, I'm extremely thirsty. I'm going to slurp my coffee. All right, through a straw. I may put some thumbnails of these pictures of these pages of the book I was talking about, and I may include some information in the description. If I don't please go easy on me. I appreciate your mercy. All right. Thank you, Patreon subscribers or supporters and patrons and any other platform, whoever has the right to consume this content. Thank you very much, and please comment, subscribe, and ask me questions. I'm happy to, so far, if the audience ever gets too big, I maybe not be able to give you personalized attention, but for now, I definitely can interact with you. I would appreciate some feedback. All right. Thank you very much. Have a super excellent rest of May. I've got to begin audio processing and digging through and cleaning all this stuff up and exporting the videos. Exporting the videos is a big part of the process here. The way I do it, I'm probably not doing it a smart way. I'm doing it my way. That's one way of saying it. So you can see in the video there, I still haven't installed the sensors. That's next episode. Have an awesome time. See you soon. Thank you for watching.